Hi, my name is Nick, and welcome to Nick's Picks Watch Reviews, the YouTube channel where we look at watches that I would pick, I might pick, or I have picked. And today we're going to be looking at a watch that I picked 2 years before I actually bought it. It's one of those situations where, you see it in the case so many times, and then you stop seeing it in the case, and you just didn't get it before because, well, you just weren't going to buy it that day. It just wasn't the day. And then when the day finally comes, it's one of the watches that you can't buy anymore, which was pretty much the case with any stainless steel Rolex sports watch. And in this case, I was able to pick it up. I actually bought it without a relationship with the AD I bought it from. I walked in, it was not in the case. In fact, there was nothing in the case. I asked specifically about this watch, given I had had my eye on it for some time with my love of blue dials, my love of thin watches. It is a nice, thin, elegant size. And sure enough, they had one that they were in the process of selling to someone else. Now, thankfully, or not thankfully, I don't know what their situation was, but that other person backed out, and I got the call the next day. Unfortunately, I had left the city, so I flew back in, and I picked it up and finally bought it. But this was a long journey coming, and certainly a watch that I'm happy to have in the collection now. As I look at the Yacht-Master, I can't help but compare it to the Vacheron Constantin Overseas. And I know that you might be saying, but wait a minute, what are you talking about? Vacheron is in a completely different category. This is ridiculous. But here's the deal. Both of them are elegant sport watches. Both of them fit that category. The difference is that, of course, with the Yacht-Master, it's coming from Rolex, who has a history and heritage in the sport watch world, whereas the Overseas is coming from Vacheron, who has this history and heritage in the kind of more upscale dress watch, luxury watch world. And yet both are bringing both the elements of sportiness and elegance together to deliver a watch. And I must say that both of them did a great thing by releasing them in blue, my favorite color. And so as we can see here, they did make some different design choices. Rolex rolled with the precious metals straight in the bezel, whereas Vacheron kind of went with the steel bezel. So they kind of went sporty on the bezel. Rolex went more elegant, you could say, on the bezel, or more upscale. But it's kind of interesting the choices that they made and wear. And of course, Vacheron is going to come through with decoration on the movement that is completely unmatched. And Rolex is going to come through with precision in the movement that's usually unmatched in that space. So they both did great things in the way that they do best. But I feel like they fit that same category. And I will say that I do love them both, which might make a few minds out there explode a little bit, but you can share your love or hate for that in the comments. While we're spending time comparing Rolex and Vacheron, it is kind of interesting to point out that both of them have gone the way of taking their elegant sport watch and bringing it into a more adventurous world, actually kind of moving it more towards the sporty side. We saw this with Vacheron releasing the Everest model of their Overseas dual time and Overseas chronograph with the help of adventurer and photographer Corey Richards. And we saw this with Rolex with the titanium Yacht-Master No Date worn by British competitive sailor Sir Charles Benedict Ainslie. And yet, as we look at Rolex, they already have sporty models. They have the Submariner. They don't need to, take this elegant Yacht-Master and make it any more sporty than it is. All right, enough of that. Let's talk specifications. So this is the Yacht-Master 116622 with the blue dial, not to be confused with the 116622, the previous generation. This one differs very little visually. It does have this additional coronet at the 6 o'clock, much like the newest generation of the Submariner and the GMT Master 2. And like the newer version of the Submariner, it's also powered by the Rolex 3235 self-winding movement with a power reserve of 70 hours. In terms of its size, it's a 40mm watch, although if you actually measure it, it measures out to 41 because of the case shape. The case shape is a more elegant case shape with rounded edges, and at the bulge in the middle, it's 41mm, but of course at the tippy top of that rounded edge, it is 40 in diameter. Lug to lug is 46.5 millimeters. Its lug width is the perfect lug width, 20 millimeters, but it also tapers down quite a bit, down to 15.4 millimeters at the clasp. Its thickness is 11.5 millimeters, allowing it to slip under the cuff and also have a little bit more versatility. One of my favorite things in a watch is when it's nice and thin. In terms of materials on this one, you might assume that it's precious metals based on the polished center links, but no, they went with steel on this one all the way through, except for the bidirectional bezel, which uses platinum. And yes, you did hear that right. I did say platinum. It is going to be on the part that you bang most into door frames and doorknobs and everything else in life. And it's not really finished well for that type of wear. Mainly because it has this bead blasted finish, this polished raised surface. And, you could polish up the raised surface, make it look nice. But if you go too deep, it makes these weird, kind of burned in marks on the bead blasted finish. I don't know. It doesn't refinish well. So pretty much just never scratch it or bang it up if that bothers you. Now, if it doesn't bother you, then great. You're going to have a great time with this watch. But if you're someone that gets bothered by a little bit of wear, you're going to have a very bad time. You're pretty much never going to wear it. It's going to sit in the safe and you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. But other than that, it's a great watch. It features the modern conveniences of a sapphire crystal. It has a stainless steel case back. There's nothing really to see in the movement there. They did a little bit of decorations, but they didn't really go overboard to any extent that you need to see it. And the surprise here is really the water resistance, although it might not be too much of a surprise given that this is not a dive watch. It's for, sitting on a boat or standing on a boat or whatever you do on a boat. Instead, it has a respectable water resistance of 100 meters. And the screw down crown does feature a additional gasket there to help ensure that. Now, a big part of the story of this watch is the dial, that gorgeous sunburst blue dial with that splash of red text and a matching red second hand sweeping over it at 28,800 vibrations per hour. It is stunning. It is one of the most gorgeous colors of blue that I've seen in any watch. I think, I actually lined it up after I got it. I lined it up with a few other watches I had that were blue. And I must say that it is stunning. Now, there are some blues that are a little bit better, but it is one of the top ones in there for sure. And on that dial, it features applied indices with Chromolite Lume that has amazing brightness, amazing staying power, and it is kind of that Rolex signature at this point, that bright blue, delicious lume. But unfortunately, not in the bezel, because no bezel lume for you in this one. Do you ever have one of those days where you just wish you had 5 millimeters of additional length? Just 5 millimeters, it would change your life. Well, you're in luck with Rolex's Easylink system in the clasp. The Yacht-Master offers exactly 5 millimeters additional length. Now, not quite as much as the glide lock system. And if you're expecting the glide lock system here, if you're looking at it and you're saying, well, it has a timing bezel, that should be something that's one of those professional watches that has glide lock. I've seen it on the dive watches. Remember, this is not a dive watch. This is trying to be something you wear on a boat. And on a boat, you're timing the speed of other boats, I guess. I actually don't know because I don't have a boat, but apparently you don't care how long you've been underwater, and you also don't wear a wetsuit, and you don't necessarily need to extend the bracelet to fit over a wetsuit like you can with the glide lock. And so in this case, you're not going to get it. If you need additional length, you're going to have to look somewhere else, like maybe a NATO or a rubber strap or something else entirely. So yes, the bezel is a con in as much as it is easy to scratch, and so are the polished center links, which definitely don't get a lot of love. But that out of the way, it is a beautiful watch, and certainly one that you might want. Although if you are considering a Rolex and you're considering specifically the Yacht-Master because of its elegance, because of its sportiness, I would propose an alternative if you have a larger wrist. Now, the Yacht-Master does wear a little bit smaller on the wrist than it appears because of its bezel. The bezel color, with it not being, a really dark, deep black color in this case, it tends to wear smaller. Whereas if you look to the Submariner, specifically the 126613LB, you'll find that the bluesy is actually quite elegant. You will find it doesn't quite have the same case shape. It doesn't have these rounded, elegant corners like the Yacht-Master. It does have these harsh edges, but with the mixture of the precious metals in the bracelet and in the overall design of the watch, it does have an air of elegance about it, and it is still fairly thin for what it is. Now, you will find the bracelet does not taper, not nearly as much as the Yacht-Master does. The Yacht-Master's taper is perfect. It goes basically from 20 down to 15.4. So definitely a lot more taper, a lot more elegance. But if you have a larger wrist, you might find the Submariner Bluesy is a better fit for you. That being said, you probably won't be able to find a Submariner of any kind, really, at any authorized dealer without a significant weight. And you might find the same case with the Yacht-Master as well. Although I will say that the Yacht-Master seems to be a little bit less loved than the other sport watches in the mix. So you might actually have a little bit better chance of picking it up firsthand. Secondhand market, you would pay a hefty premium, and I honestly don't think it's worth it. There are certainly amazing watches at that price point. Once you start getting up to, you know, the gray market pricing right now on any Rolex sports models at all, there's a lot better watches at that price point. It's definitely worth the wait. You do have to be a patient person, and you know, I don't know how patient you might be. So in summary, if you can find it, the Rolex Yacht-Master 40 with a blue dial is an amazing pick. You get an elegant sport watch. You get a robust and precise movement that's a superlative chronometer, not just a chronometer, but it's superlative. Rolex has done the extra testing there, and it is the full package. Beautiful watch, great performance, elegant, sporty, very versatile. But again, if you're not a fan of getting damage on your watch that you can see in any way, this one's not for you. If you have a large wrist, significantly large wrist, maybe think about the bluesy. Maybe think about a deep sea. Otherwise, this one, it might fit the bill. All right, that's all for this week. We'll see you next time on Nick's Picks Watch Reviews. And until then, take care. If you like this episode, please be sure to subscribe to both this channel and the About Time channel. Give this video a like and hit that notification bell to be notified about future episodes. Yacht-Master. I don't even have a boat. I gotta fix this. All right, so I'm just gonna go and maybe search for boat. That looks a little bit too expensive. $165? Come on. How about low to high? Banana boat? I don't need banana boat. Don't need sunscreen. I can't even get on the boat. Oh, wait. There's a boat. Now we're talking. 16 bucks. And it's an Explorer. I could wear my Yacht-Master in an Explorer. I wonder if there's any coupons.